Gabby.
Hi, G.
Thank you for joining us for the barn talks again. We're starting again, going to the barns and interviewing nice riders, people that I admire a lot. So I appreciate you taking the
Thank
the
you
time.
for taking me into consideration. I really appreciate it. We've been friends for a while, but it's always nice to have you and see you. And we just ran into each other a couple weeks ago. Thank you for having me.
Of course, my pleasure. So we're gonna go through some questions. I kind of want to hear, and if you want to talk anything that's not here, feel free to.
Okay.
My first question is, when did you start riding and why? Because some people have the craziest stories.
Mine's not that interesting. I went to a little summer camp when I was like 4 years old. My dad's cousin had a riding club, and they put me in. I don't remember very much. I just remember I fell off during this summer camp, and I was really young, and we didn't have ponies in the Dominican Republic, so I fell off from a large horse, and I got really scared, and I didn't want to do it again. They told my parents not to bring me because I was too young, and I played every single other sport out there, and nothing ever kept me in it enough. And one day on a Sunday, this I remember, I was 11 years old. I went to my mom and I said, I want to go horseback riding. And she said, okay. So I started going once a week to the pony club, or the club. And I got really hooked really quickly. And within a year, we bought my first horse. And probably 6 months after that, then I came to Wellington for the first time. And I was mind blown. My brain exploded. But it snowballed really, really quickly, and I started dropping everything else I was doing to pursue riding.
And what was the biggest thing that you felt that was so different from the DR to here the first time you came?
Everything. I mean, we're not a country known for horseback riding. We have a couple very good riders these days, but and the sport back home is growing quite a bit, but I had never seen anything else. I had only seen the Beijing Olympics from 2008. I still have it on DVD, and I kept, I bought it when I came here the first time, and then watching the jumps, the way they build, the easiness with which the riders were guiding their horses around the courses, the height that they were jumping. I didn't even know that was possible. So I remember sitting at the Tiki Hut watching a night class, and my brain just exploded. I think I realized, even though I was so young, I was 13 probably, I realized how far away what I wanted to do was. And I'm a super competitive person, so I was like, oh no, I'm way behind. And I was watching kids my age jumping 130, and I was jumping 90 centimeters, poorly also. I had no riding position, I had no style, I didn't really know how to ride a bending line correctly. I was just taught to get on the horse and kind of go. And I got hooked really quickly. I was like, wow, okay, this is what I want to do. And yeah, so very different, very, very different. These days, thankfully, it's a lot of the kids back home have had exposure to some of the show jumping outside of the island. And I think that's created a bit of a bigger environment for it. We just had games there, so the course material is nicer. All the jumps that we used for the games are still there. They're being used for competition. So, and social media also helps a lot. They see all of us that are outside of the country, and they're like, oh, okay, I want to do that, or maybe I don't want to do that, but I can do it better here because I can see that.
Right.
So yeah, very, very shocking. 12 years ago now.
And I bet when you go back home to the DR, people look at you and they feel inspired, and they kind of want to follow the same steps and get where you're going, because you're in the top rider today, and people look at you and oh, she's going places, and you can tell that she's serious about what she's doing. So
I'm very serious, and it's very weird because what you said is right. I go back home, and when we're there as a team for the games, it was a very surreal experience having younger girls and younger boys coming up to me and saying that I was an inspiration to them. in my brain, I do my own thing. I just keep going. I'm nowhere near where I want to be yet, even though I'm very proud of the path that I've had and the career that I've had thus far. But it's very weird in a great way. You know, I don't do this to try and create anything else for anybody else, but it's always nice to have a positive impact on somebody. So I always try and make time to see them, talk to them, have them ask questions. Sometimes they can't, they get nervous. Like, I don't know, it's very weird.
They're starstruck with you.
They're a little bit starstruck, and it's so uncomfortable for me to say that because I don't consider myself a star or anything like that. I'm like, but then I look back and I can imagine the feeling, you know, from when I was their age and I was meeting riders that I admired, and there weren't that many doing it for the DR. You know, when I was growing up, we only had like Hector, really. And I had known him my whole life, so it was different. You know, I started training here and competing here so young that most of these kids hadn't even started riding. So they don't know me personally. So I guess it creates a little bit of a different aura, if you will. But anyway.
But it's important for them, I believe, too, especially from a smaller country, to see you guys succeeding, doing so well, and I'm sure they look and they're just so proud, and they want to do the same, right?
Yeah,
That'll make
and
sense.
I can't wait till some of them that are pursuing it seriously are ready to jump on the team with us. Right now we have probably around 6 riders rotating in our roster for the teams, and I think in the near future we'll hopefully have a couple more.
Absolutely.
And that's exciting.
Yeah, I was gonna say, where do you see the DR as a team going?
We have a lot of talent. As you know, the hardest part about this sport is finding the right horses at the right time. I think right now we have at least 5 riders with good horses. And, you know, like Hector, for example, I'm never worried about. I always tell him he's like a cat. You can throw him in the air and he'll always land on his feet. And so I think, you know, if he doesn't have a horse at the moment, I'm sure he'll have one in a couple months or a couple weeks or a couple days. You know, with him, you never know. And we have a great team dynamic also, which I think has changed recently. We're a small country, very competitive. It was a little bit like rubbing, I don't know what the way that you say it, but, you know, it was like rubbing against each other. Not necessarily in the best way in the beginning. I think everybody was trying to prove to the rest of the team that they deserved their spot or that they deserved it more or whatever. A couple, 5-6 years ago, everything kind of shifted, and now we're all constantly supporting each other. Even if we're at a regular horse show, we're there in the warm-up, helping, offering whatever we can to make sure that, because at the end of the day, I think because we hadn't had a team in a very long time, it was very individualized. And in order to success as a team, everybody needs to want their teammates to do well individually. And then when you come together for certain events, then that bond and that, you know, dynamic is already there. And I find we've been more successful in part because of that.
That's so nice. And I see also that the federation is doing their best to support you guys, and they're always working hard. You have maybe some sponsors even from the DR that they see you guys doing here, and it's so nice how it's now I've seen that everyone is growing together and everyone is trying to support each other, exactly how you say.
Yeah. No, the federation has done an outstanding job, especially supporting the sport back home, which is where it's created, you know. They've always been great supporting all of us that are outside of the country and going to international events or whatever. But I think they've really, really stepped up in developing the riders back home. They do more clinics. They're bringing better horses into the country. They're having more competitions. They're bringing course designers from the U.S. or from Latin America. So I think they are just as serious as we are, and they see the vision of all the talent that we have, and they're doing a great, you know, job of fostering that to try and get a bigger team, more teams, if possible.
Wow, that's amazing. I'm super excited about it. My other question is, when did you kind of click? What was it the first time you came here at 13 years old that you realized you wanted to do that professionally, or was it a different time?
No, the first time I came here, I remember it was 2010, so 14 years ago now. Um, and I watched the horse show. I went to the horse show all day. We leased a horse for me to do like the itty bitty jumpers or something, I don't know. And I realized how, like, even jumping 90 centimeters, I clearly looked not prepared enough and not as comfortable as the other kids looked. And I remember we took a pit stop at Taqueria, as you do. And back then, they sold DVDs of all the big competitions. And I remember I just stacked them. And I was like, I need to take all of these. Because I was just here for like a weekend. So I stacked up on like 5 DVDs. I got 2007 Aachen World Championships. I got the Beijing Olympics. Those are the 2 I watched the most. And then I got a couple more of horsemanship and I don't know, some like other videos. And watching the Beijing Olympics, I saw Laura Kraut on Cedric and Beezy Madden. And as female riders, I just felt so inspired. I felt like, wow, okay, these are boss ladies. I want to somehow get there. I wasn't sure how. I wasn't sure in how long. When you're young, time is very weird. Like as you grow and mature, you understand that the timing for your career in this sport is very different from everybody else's. But when you're young, you're free to dream, and you don't really know, or I didn't know at the time, how difficult it was to, first of all, catch up to my own age group, and then from there, get down, to gritty work and effort. I mean, it's just a lot of time, and I think watching, though I go back often to watch that particular Olympics. And I was like, wow, okay, I want to be an Olympian and I want to do that and do it that well, okay. And I realized I needed to put all of my time and effort into it. And my parents had a better vision as to how to get there than I did. So my mom particularly started planning to come here on like every weekend or every other weekend the next season, and try and find a trainer here and try and find a better horse. And as I said earlier, with my diving into the sport, everything just snowballed really quickly. And I think I get my competitiveness and my discipline from her. So I think she just saw that and saw how serious I was, and I had never been that serious about anything. And she just actually helped me in creating a path that I could follow, because I didn't know where to even begin.
That's so nice. Usually that comes from a trainer, but in your case, came from your parents. They saw the vision and they understood where you wanted to go, and they just said, "Okay, I think this is where the best riders are. So the chances are this is
we need to be there."
Yeah.
And granted, we made a lot of mistakes in the beginning. We learned all the lessons that everybody has to learn, moving up and down and buying the right horse, buying the wrong horse. I had the wrong horse many times. But I'm very grateful today because I think it made me a better rider. But yeah, I'm extremely grateful that they had that vision as early as they did, just from watching me be so enthralled with everything here.
So you said about having the wrong horses. I understand that now we take something good out of it, but I don't know if in the Dominicans like that. I'm Brazilian, and in Brazil, we often think like, oh no, it's good for someone to ride difficult horses or the wrong horses, let's put it this way, because it's going to teach them how to be a better rider. Do you believe in that, or how do you feel about it?
Well, I agree. I agree. I was 15 riding 4 6-year-olds at one point, and I was a behind 15-year-old, I was still catching up to the level, and I don't think many 15-year-olds are super precise in their riding, and not every 6-year-old is meant to be ridden by a 15-year-old or can be or should be. So I think in a way it was good because today I feel confident sitting on pretty much any type of horse and being comfortable enough that I'll be able to jump it around. And at the same time, in given moments throughout my junior career, it took away a lot of my confidence. And I've seen it now older with the juniors that are coming up here in the States. And I think it's also very important to have the right horse because it installs in you a sense of belief. And, you know, horses humble us daily. They let you know that you need to be on your best game every day or they're going to take advantage of it. So you need to have the right horse. It doesn't have to be the best horse in the class. It doesn't have to be the best horse in the world, but just the right horse, which is a horse that is safe. I had a lot of stoppers growing up, and it took me a couple of years to battle through the insecurity of, because most times when horses stops, it's the rider's fault, and that should be installed in your brain early on. It's not a terrible thing. It happens to everybody at every level. But when it's happening over and over and over, and you're still a young, developing rider, and you've been told that it's the rider's fault that the horse stops, your confidence takes a dip. I agree. Today, I can ride any horse, and I'm thankful for that. But maybe I could have done with a little less shaking of my confidence. It's a coin toss, you know. I think it also built my character. It also built my resilience. But I could have done without a couple hospital trips, you know.
Oh my God, yes, absolutely. Talking about hospital trips, just to see, did you ever had like a bad trauma with horses? Because I see a lot of people that they have a bad fall, they never come back, or they're afraid, or.
Yeah, I've been very lucky. I did once break a part of a vertebrae, but I didn't I heard it as I fell. I fell on my face, like dove down, landed on my face, and my body went over my head, like my behind touched the back of my head.
Yeah.
So my back bent the wrong way, and I heard everything crack. So I got scared enough, you know, as I laid on the ground, I was like going through a mental checklist of like, can I move everything? It was pretty scary, and I was young. I was 15, I think, or maybe 16, and one of the 6-year-olds I tell you I shouldn't have been riding.
Yeah.
But once I realized I was fine, thankfully my head was fine, and I got up and I was like, oh, okay, I feel fine. I went to jump my other 2 horses, and I found out 3 years later through another fall that I needed x-rays for, that I had fractured it, and it's calcified in my back, and I never knew, and I never did anything about it. But I think the love for the sport and the love for adrenaline is a lot bigger than the fear of falling. I don't think that you should be scared of falling when you're doing this sport. I mean, nobody wants to,
right. But
it's a given. You will fall.
Right.
It's just a matter of when or how. And so, no, thankfully, I have not been scared.
That's awesome.
And it's going to be a little difficult to scare me. I'm pretty fearless in that way. Like, if I'm not badly hurt, I'll get right back on and get it fixed right away.
Right. That's amazing. Do you use air vests?
I haven't gotten an air vest. I don't have anything against it. I think they're great. Personally, I think there's a couple tweaks that need to be done still. But I am sure I'll get one in the future soon enough.
Right. Everyone does at the
end. I think it's great that is an option right now.
Absolutely.
And they're actually even making them stylish. You can wear them under your jacket, over your jacket. I've seen some red ones to match team jackets. So like, I think eventually it'll be mandatory and eventually everyone will wear it. And I have no problem wearing it. I've ridden in it a couple times. Right now I don't have one.
Okay, perfect. So tell us a little bit about the most special moment in your career.
I think it's a little bit of a tie. Well, it's a 3-way tie today. If you've interviewed me 2 weeks ago, it would have been a 2-way tie. Today, it's a 3-way tie. The first one, I'll go in chronological order. The first one was being second in the World Cup qualifier in Ocala last year in the winter in March. I had never jumped a World Cup qualifier. I got a little more nervous than I had in a while walking it. I had made my schedule to peak at that horse show from like the previous year, from November or so. I had arranged so that Sparky and I would be doing that Grand Prix and working our way up towards it for him to peak at that show. And the first day was pretty good. The second day was even better. And then the Grand Prix day, I walked around and I said, oof, this is big enough, and competition's pretty, serious. And he was unbelievable. We ended up being second to Andre Time on Chakaria, who were reigning European champions, or were, I think, reigning European champions at the time. It was really, really a special moment. I had won a Grand Prix before with Sparky, and it was special because it was my first Grand Prix win and his first Grand Prix win, but this one was a lot more important. There was a lot of things behind it that made it special. And I was just very proud of him, very proud of myself, and very proud of my team and and the program towards that show. Knowing that 6 months before we planned everything for that to happen, and it actually did happen, it's always rewarding. It puts a couple coins in the confidence bank. The second piece of the tie is last year in the summer, I won my first individual medal in a senior championship with Sparky, and at home. So having so many friends and family was so special. My friends and my family don't get to come to every show or to every major championship, or not major, but every championship that we do. So it was really, really special. Winning my first medal at home, I think I will always remember that a little bit. And then the last one happened about 2 weeks ago, or a little under 2 weeks ago. Sparky went through some things that we'll talk about in a second, where his future was very uncertain. And we weren't sure if he was going to come back or not. And Friday, the week prior to last, we won a meter 35 stake in Tryon. We were the only double clear, and he felt like himself. So it was not my most important win by any means. I've won a couple classes on him, bigger classes. I've placed in some big Grand Prix. That meter 35 class made me very emotional. It's for sure been the most emotional I've been, because it was the first class that I felt he was 100% back himself, feeling as good as he could. And then he followed that up by winning the meter 40 classic this past Sunday. So it's been a fantastic comeback for him so far. And I'm just looking forward to keeping him happy and healthy. And I don't put any pressure anymore on us. We'll see what he wants to do, what he doesn't. Right now he feels like he's bored doing 140. So we'll take a shot at a 2-star in a couple weeks and go from there. Right now I'm just extremely grateful that I can go in the ring again with him and be competitive. I think up until today up until a couple weeks ago, I had won maybe a total of like 2 or 3 classes on him altogether in the 3 years I'd had him. And then in the past 2 months, I've won 3 classes already. Granted, they're lower level. But actually, he's less competitive at a lower level than at a higher level because he's not particularly fast. So I don't know. Maybe it's something that had to happen, and we're both very grateful we get a second shot at it.
So tell what happened to Sparky, if you're okay telling that. I mean, to the extent that you feel comfortable.
Yeah, I mean, I won't go into excruciating details, but during travel, August of last year, he sustained a cut, and the cut didn't seem to be too serious in the beginning. So we just kept looking at it. He was put on 3 antibiotics, generally used in the barn, recommended by vets that saw him, SMZs, Gent, and penicillin. Usually that covers most of your bases. We encountered the problem that we did a culture in the cut because it wasn't healing. And it turns out that the bacteria that had infected the wound, was resistant to all three of those. So he had been on antibiotics that were not helping the infection for a couple weeks. And so the infection had progressed a lot. And so I sent him back here to Wellington with a 50% survival chance. My world was turned upside down. I was pretty broken because it was a freak thing. My other two horses were traveling with him and they were fine. So he spent six or 7 weeks at the clinic under very close supervision because we discussed 3 different surgeries as he was making progress. None of them gave him a very good prognosis to a sport, comeback. And the surgeon himself, I will be eternally grateful to him. He was the one that said, look, I'm going to try my best to not operate on this horse because if I do, I don't know. I can't give you a prognosis. And he pulled through. No surgery needed. Nothing was left behind. Nothing was damaged. Nothing was hurt in the process. So he just took a long time to come back to work. He lost like 600 pounds. He lost all his muscle. And he's a chunky boy. So it was a little heartbreaking seeing him in that condition. You could see his face. He was fighting. He was trying his best to be good for all of us. But it was tough. And when he came out of the clinic and he was released, we couldn't even put a saddle on him, how weak he had gotten. Mm-hmm. And we just did a very, 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 very slow back to work program. TT, who I trained with for 8 years and is like a second mother to me, is the most qualified person I know. And she took him in her barn, and brought him along. And, none of us knew what would happen. And he was walking, then trotting, then started to canter. And in March this year, he started jumping baby cross rails. And he just came back slowly. And right now, he feels like he didn't skip a beat.
That's awesome. He's so strong.
He's special in many ways, but for sure special to anybody who gets the chance to meet him and interact with him for a little bit longer than just a hi.
Right. Oh, I'm so happy for you that he pulled through and now he's back winning classes. Yeah. That's awesome.
It adds to what, in my opinion, was already a pretty special story, and I don't know, we'll see. I'm optimistic, but again, as I said, no pressure. He owes me nothing. He's given me more than I ever dreamed of. So right now we're just enjoying it, and we'll see if we can make it back to the top and be better at it, because we didn't get a chance to do it all that often. So we'll see.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. I'm very emotional right now.
I've cried. I'm out of tears.
Oh my God.
I've cried multiple times recently.
I imagine.
My heart is, you can feel it get squeezed.
Yeah.
Coming out of the ring, I don't know. I have a real hard time figuring out who's happier to be back in the ring. He's a showman. So
he enjoys it.
He really thrives on horse show atmosphere, and he's telling us he's ready. So we're just being patient. Yeah. We've been patient for a long time. It'd be a little stupid to rush now.
How old is he?
He's 12.
12. He still has a lot. Many years.
His legs are fresh now. He had almost a year off from jumping altogether. Mm-hmm. So he's fresh, and knowing him, I think he'll be going for a very long time.
Yeah, amen. Absolutely. That's what we expect from him. So you're talking a little bit about Sparky's personality, and we can go a little bit more about that and about your other horses, because now you have a string of horses, a very nice one.
I'm very excited. I haven't had a string in a while, and that's just sport. It takes time to find the right couple of horses to put together that fit your needs. Sparky, he's the king of the castle. He is the most special, attention-seeking stallion mare behaved gelding. Um,
I love that.
he is very jealous of other horses. He doesn't like other horses in general. He doesn't like to be alone, but they can't come too close to him. He likes his people, and he doesn't like strangers to touch him particularly, but he loves strangers to look at him. So he's a complex personality and very loud, very, very, very loud. And I don't mean him nickering all day long or screaming or whatever. He just has a way to get everybody's head turned at all times when he wants it. And he was an only child of mine for about a year. The first year I had him, a little bit over, he was an only child. So he had all my attention, and I gave it, like, I would spend hours and hours and hours in the barn just hanging out with him. And I think now that he's not an only child, he's not too sure of the others. So yeah, in a summary, he's a gelding that acts like a stallion and a mare mixed together. He's very popular around the horse show. Spectators tend to flip their head towards him. I notice a lot of riders that I don't even know very well know who he is. So he's the star. I'm just there to point him to the right fence. And like, he'll argue that he doesn't need me. He's very arrogant also. He's funny. I could speak about him all day. He gives you a lot of things to talk about in regards to him. So for sure, the king of the castle. Then we have Marley, who I've had the second longest. Her show name is Jamaica, but she goes by Marley in the barn. She is the sweetest mare in the world when you're riding. She is a hot tamale when you're riding. So she's got like a double personality. Super careful, super competitive, and just really sweet. She's a little complex because she gives you mixed signals when you're riding a little bit sometimes. Sometimes she wants to go, sometimes she's like a little lazy, and I think she's been the one that's kept me on my toes the most, in a good way. But she's just really easygoing around the barn. She's got a couple little quirks, as every horse and mare particularly do, but she's just overall very sweet. She loves kids, she loves dogs, she loves girls. She's not too fanatic of men.
Like a good mare, yeah.
Yeah, she has the one guy that she loves, and it's who takes care of her now. But yeah, she's a funny girl, very extremely sweet. I can't stress that enough. She just loves to have her head on your shoulder and just lay there with you. Then we have Corey, who is my extremely exciting 6-year-old. I found him in Mexico, and he caught my eye from the beginning because on the first glance, he looks just like Sparky. Once you get to know them and see them up close, not so much, but when I saw him standing at an in-gate at a training show, he just caught my eye because he gave me a little bit of a Sparky look. And I saw him jump, and I was like, whoa. And he is Mr. Unbothered. Nothing, I mean nothing bothers him. The world could be coming to an end, and if he's got hay and water, he's just chilling in his stall. He takes a lot of naps, like he's a baby, a lot of naps, and you can nap with him. Recently, he used me as a pillow. I sat with him in his stall, and he just got like moved and then put his head on my lap like a dog. But he's absurdly sweet, and he's the actual stallion in the barn. Unbothered, does not care. Like right now, I'm pretty sure he's turned out in between the mares. It doesn't care.
He doesn't really know he's a stallion, probably.
Well, I think he does. He just has a very sweet, kind-hearted nature to him, and that's the way. He's the one that is the most like consistent in his personality throughout everything he does. So he's super chill in the barn, super chill when you ride him, super chill in the ring. Like really, Mr. Unbothered is what I call him. I also call him Midget because he's the smallest of the barn. Um, he's not that small, but compared to my other ones, he looks a little bit like a pony.
And he's been showing mid-30s now.
He just moved up to the mid-30s. He's 6 years old. I did not know they moved up the 6-year-olds, but they do. And per usual, he's unbothered. He just goes in and does it. And his head is, I think, his biggest asset. Don't get me wrong, extremely talented, but I think his head is so level, and he just works with you the whole way, which has not been my experience in general with good horses. I think they all have an opinion, and so sometimes it takes a little longer to understand how to ask and when to ask things. With him, he just says yes, okay. If he doesn't know, he figures it out, and he's just constantly trying to please you and please our grooms and please anybody who comes in contact with him.
Oh my God, he's so sweet.
He's like absurdly cute looking also.
Yeah.
And then we have the newest member of the team, Ginger. We just got her, I think like 6-7 weeks ago she got in. I went to Europe to find horses a couple months ago. She was the last one to come into the roster of horses I was going to try, and I sat on her, and she's a chestnut mare. She rides like a chestnut mare, pretty hot chestnut mare. And I was like, I don't know, the rideability is a little bit all over the place. The jump is incredible, and Michelle, my trainer, was with me at the time, and she's like, we're not leaving without her. I was like, really? I don't know. I'm a big fan of flatting my own horses, and I was like, this is not, like, it's a lot. I was bouncing off the walls everywhere, and she's like, we're not leaving without her. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to listen to her. I mean, she's my trainer for a reason. I trust and believe in everything she says 100%. I had never seen her feel that strongly about a horse in general. She's like, I love this mare. We need to take her. And I was like, well, okay. And actually, she's been the most pleasant surprise. She's actually quite sensible. So she's got character. I like them to have characters and personalities as long as they're trying to understand what you're asking and work with you. But she's really sweet. She's still, I think, a little bit in her shell because she's new to us. So in a couple months, I'll tell you a little bit more about her personality, but she's really easygoing, doesn't seem to be bothered by a lot. Her and Sparky live next to each other, and they have snorting competitions. It's really funny because they scare each other. You know, Sparky starts snoring, then she snorts, and then he snorts louder, and then she snorts. So it's very funny when they get into that. But so far, she's been like super, super easygoing. And we've figured out each other pretty quickly. We've been pretty successful right off the bat. And I'm actually now, from the first day I rode her in quarantine, I've been very excited because I was expecting a lioness. And she's not. I mean, she goes in the ring and she's feisty. She's a competitor. But she's actually very willing, you know, and I guess I was not expecting that at all, so it was a pleasant surprise. And so far, she hasn't done anything wrong, really. And so I was just really, really surprised in the best way. And I'm very excited now about her. I mean, we just did our first Grand Prix on Sunday, a National Grand Prix, and she was great. It felt like I'd known her a very long time, and she's very competitive, which has me the most excited because I haven't had such a fast horse in a while. So I'm enjoying going fast with her.
So today she's the one that you're going to be showing the Grand Prix with Sparky
Yeah.
at his speed, whatever he wants to do.
My goal after jumping 2 weeks in Tryon is to have both Sparky and Ginger in a 2-star in August. I think they're both ready. And then we'll see from there because Sparky will just keep going and see, you know, it's a little bit of a day-by-day kind of feel with the shows, but so far, nothing feels impossible. So we'll just slowly let him get back in the swing of things. And then with her, I don't want to rush it, but everything's going great, so I want to keep progressing and see where we go. She's only 9, and she's not that experienced. So she's done a couple meter 45s. This might have been like her 4th or 5th at all, like altogether that I just did with her. So I think the 2 stars right there, pretty, not easy, but, you know, pretty achievable in a couple weeks. And then we'll see. She's got scope to spare, and she's really smart. So as long as we keep going the same way, I think we'll be doing 150s in the fall, maybe. That'd be my goal. I mean, but I'd rather take small steps always forward than rush and then have to backtrack. I don't know. It's easier. Some people sometimes say I go too slow with my horses. But if you see, generally speaking, I go slow in the beginning, and once they're going, they're pretty successful at what they're doing. So I think, at least to me, that's a reference that the way I do it works for me. I'm not saying it has to be that way for everybody. I think everyone finds their own groove. But for me, that's what I think it's most successful. And I've seen it with a lot of the top level riders. You know, you jump smaller, quote unquote, to get to know your horse, and don't overphase yourself and them as a combination early on, and then you'll be pretty successful with whatever you end up doing with them if you take the time in the beginning.
It's like building a base and then going from there whenever everything feels round.
And I always say that when you first get a horse, the trial is the best day you'll have with it for a while, because you just sit on it and ride it off a feel. Then you start showing. The first few months are great. Then there's usually a small dip in that groove where the horse is finally settled into your program. You have finally gotten to know the horse. And so what initially clicked, the horse is changing to adapt to your program, or you're changing to adapt to the way the horse goes. And usually, like 90% of the time, that has been my experience, you have a pretty good, successful first couple months. Then there's a point where things seem to get a little bit out of tune, and you just have to take a second, take a step back, regroup, and see what's going on. And if you're patient with it and like know it might be coming, then I think you surpass it rather quickly. But so that's why I don't like to rush in the beginning, because in the beginning it goes really, really well. But, you know, things start to move and change, and she's changing a lot as I work her on the flat. So I know the rideability is getting a lot better really quickly. So I also need to keep adapting to her being more rideable and straight and all of these things that she's doing so great.
It shows so much maturity of you, of your personality, to understand first that not everything happens from the day to the next night, and it's okay to give a step back sometimes.
Yep.
And also to listen to the horse, because at the end they're telling you what's going on right, what's going on wrong, and exactly what to do. So you're super young, but you have this head, this maturity of saying, that's okay, I'm not in a rush, because in this sport we can do this sport for 60 years and just be competitive during 50 of those. So
it's taken a lot of time for me to find that out, that I'm not in a rush, because I think you can't help but compare your path and your success to those at your level or your age group, or people that you did juniors with, where they're at, where they're not. Like, it's really tough, especially when you're competitive, and I think everybody in this sport is competitive. So I don't like to generalize, but I think all of us, as we grow and develop, you can't help but say, why are they doing better than me? Why are they jumping all those big Grand Prix and I'm not? Why are they being successful jumping those Grand Prix, and now that I'm jumping them, why am I not? And if anything I've learned from this whole process with Sparky, I think it just taught me to step back, like really step back, and be okay with my path. And if you ask me, I don't think it's been quick enough, because I used to not be very patient. Horses teach you that. It's not on your time, it's on their time. And Sometimes it works out exactly how you want it, like my result in the Grand Prix with Sparky at Live Oak. Sometimes it doesn't, like him getting hurt right before the Pan Am Games that I'd been working for 3 years. So I was really disappointed, probably still am, but I've learned to be okay with it, and I'm just trying to rebuild everything again. And I'm happy doing it, and I can honestly say that. I'm not faking the happiness of jumping 130 and 140 again. I hadn't jumped a Grand Prix in 7 months until Sunday, and I was just happy to be there and happy to have a horse to do it with. And I don't know, this sport is so long if you pursue it seriously and, you know, at that level, and horses are going to come in and out of your barn, and special ones are going to come hopefully in more than once. And I just try these days to work hard, stay consistent, show up every day, and try and find horses that I like and enjoy and I can work with that are talented. That usually comes with younger horses. I learned I like to develop them. I learned I'm good at it. I mean, the first one was Sparky, and granted I had help throughout all of these guys, but then came Marley, and we ended up, you know, doing some very, very good results in 2-star level, which was the idea when we got her. And then we bought Corey as a 5-year-old last year, and he's a 6-year-old jumping 130 now, and him I've done all by myself, and he's doing great, and I find it really rewarding. Ginger's 9, she's a little older, I guess, but still inexperienced. I enjoy working with the horses every day, and at the end of the day, I am a very, very adrenaline-driven rider that loves to show and loves to compete and loves to win. But bigger than that, I love my horses, and I love working with them, trying to figure them out, trying to see what works for them. Everyone's different, and you can't do the same exercise for all of them all the time. I don't know. I think it takes a lot of patience and sensitivity to learn their tweaks and their quirks and how much leg they like, how little hand they like, all these little tiny things, and you just get to know that on the daily. And when I was young, I didn't enjoy the flat work. Mm-hmm. These days, I really, really, really enjoy it, and I've been very lucky to train with some people that have taught me a lot, and I've gotten little tools from everybody to create what today is my program. Mm-hmm. And it works for me, and I'm proud of that. And I'm on my own quite a bit these days, and it makes my heart really happy to see that my horses are happy and that we go to a show and we're successful at it, doing what we're doing, and, you know, just keeping them happy and keeping them fit, but also letting them be horses and be themselves.
So you enjoyed the process. The whole point is about enjoying the little things and seeing where you're going to get, but slowly, right, at the horse's time.
Yeah, and I think the results usually come quicker when you approach it this way. I think in the past I kept chasing show ring results, and that ended up frustrating me, which ended up frustrating my horse and ended up frustrating my trainers, whoever it was at the time. It was just a little bit of a negative circle. These days I try and make a calendar, pick the shows that I want to go to, pick the shows or the classes that I would like horses to do at every show. Mm-hmm. And with horses, everything changes. But I think that if you have a structure, it's a lot easier to get the results. So you plan the days you will jump to prep for a horse show. You will plan ahead what kind of exercise you want. I'm not one to jump a lot of courses at home. I try and focus more on gymnastics and grid-like exercises with all my horses. Even Corey, who's 6, he's so well broke now that I do a lot of courses with cavalettis and like poles on the ground to work on rideability. But for jumping, he doesn't need that much. And that's my goal, to always get the horses to a point where they're fit. And when they're jumping, it's just to get the muscles moving, get the eyes sharper, and, you know, make sure they're in tune with what I'm expecting of them. And it has given me a lot more peace of mind, and I've come back to enjoying the sport, which took a little dip for a couple times, like for a little bit there. I was too focused on results, and well, it jolted to a stop really when Sparky's thing happened. But now I'm just, again, enjoying my horses, being thankful that I have them, and making sure I do my part in our equation, because I can't expect their best when I'm not putting in my best.
That's perfect.
Yeah.
Sometimes we're just too worried about the result, and the result is a combination of things that you've done.
Yeah.
So the result is literally just the end of it, not the beginning. So we instead of starting at the result, like you said, starting at the jumper ring, you started, okay, like, no, my day-to-day is this, and this is what I need to do. And the horses just give you the results like that.
Yeah, I think they come easier. And I don't know, I'm enjoying the sport right now a lot more than I was a year ago. And I was doing pretty great a year ago. And I was enjoying it, but my focus had shifted. And I don't know, I think you get worn out from that mindset, you know? And don't get me wrong, results are extremely important. They're what demonstrate that your program's working and your training's correct. But it's not all of it. It's not most of it. So if you can be happy with your everyday, then showing it's just a plus, and you go into it relaxed, your horses go into it relaxed and willing to want to perform. And I think at the end of the day, the horses need to want to do it as much as we do. And some of them have that really innately. And I think that's what makes a good show jumper, that they want to be careful, that they want to be competitive, that they want to be in the ring and thrive on the energy. And then your job is to make sure that everything around that innate instinct of the horse is catered to maximize that once you go in the ring. At the show, you're not fixing anything.
That's perfect. At the show, you're not fixing anything.
No, there's nothing to fix. You fix at home, slow, over smaller fences with very particular exercises. When you get to, like, if you watch me warm up at the horse show, I don't do anything fancy. Like, I'll trot around both directions, canter around, do a couple lead changes. Some horses need to be a little bit collected before we start. But it's not going to change anything. And my warm-up is very basic. Vertical, vertical, oxer, 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 oxer. And then, you know, obviously details change on the build of every fence, or how big you want to start with a vertical, or if you want to start with an oxer. That's individualized to every horse. But you don't see me do anything too fancy, too intricate. I'm hoping my horses are relaxed. The warm-up is a warm-up. You're not going to fix it. You're not going to fix a drift. You can correct it a little bit, but you're not going to fix a drift. You're not going to fix a swapping. You're not going to fix that the horse is lazy behind, or that the horse is too much on its nose. Like, none of that you're going to fix in 15, 20 minutes that you're warming up. So I learned that not early on, but that has been reinforced in my brain constantly. And now that I'm on my own a lot more, it's just enlarged. So I do a lot of my homework at the shows on things where I make mistakes. I write them down, and I go back and watch my bad rounds more than I do my good ones. And why did I have that rail? Where did it come from? What can I do to fix it? What can I practice? What kind of combination or line was it that maybe the horse wasn't exactly where I needed him to be? That's on me. That's not on him or her. But how can I train that at home? And my brain's always constantly working and watching other horse shows, other riders that I admire and look up to, so that when I'm home, I'm busy and I'm doing things to fix it and to correct, not fix, but I don't like that word, but correct. And in the midst of all of that, I take time to take my horses out to the canals. Sometimes they just need a break from the ring.
Yeah.
And I take them out to the canals. I work them outside. You know, I leg yield in between trees in the canals, and all these things that I think makes it nicer for everybody to work. I've been successful with that. It's just more centered around the horse rather than me. I'm the one that has to adapt.
That's awesome.
Really.
That's perfect. That's oh my God.